This is Marco Royce.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 421 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will preview the 2022-23 season, where we assess Borussia Dortmund's transfer window and what puzzle pieces Sebastian Kehl might still need to add, how BVB will deal with the absence of record signing Sebastian Aller. We will discuss what our expectations are for the Black and Yellows this season and how we think they will stack up against league rivals, and if time allows, we will also post our best starting 11. For that and more, joins me my dear co-host, Lars Pollmann. Hello, Lars. How are you doing?
When was I promoted to co-host, Stefan?
You've always been co-host.
I thought I was a pundit.
Anyway, here with me, pundit co-host, Lars Pollmann. How are you doing, Lars?
Fine. How are you, Stefan?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Also with me here, co-host, pundit, whatever you want to call it, Konstantin Eckner from Spielverlagerung.com. Hello, Konstantin. How are you doing?
I would call myself occasional guest or something. I know.
Okay.
Okay? Is that...
Yeah.
I also you were quite hesitant before you said last name. I was like, did you forget it or something?
I did not think I was hesitant, no. Maybe I just did a dramatic pause. I don't know.
Well, that's not like you.
All right. Anyway, so Konstantin, since you're the first one to
insult you? Yeah.
Insult me. You get the first question, and which is, you are now tasked with assessing Borussia Dortmund's transfer window in general, and whether you think that there are any puzzle pieces that could still be missing.
Well, I mean, at first they might need a new striker. No. In a vacuum, I think that transfer window, at least on the buying side, was quite successful because they found, I think at least, a suitable replacement for Erling Haaland, at least all things considered, what you can actually buy these days for reasonable money. They found a new hybrid striker in Adeyemi, also not bad, especially because the winger department is a little bit thin these days. They signed two center backs. Some might think that's a little bit redundant, but I don't think so, because Mats Hummels is just will not be able to play all the matches. That's now safe to say because of his chronic patella tendon problems. And you have also the option to play a very decent back three with Schlotterbeck on the left side, especially. And Özcan is kind of the Witsel replacement, but in a way an upgrade to, of course, old man Witsel, who's now playing under Diego Simeone. What a marriage that will be. I think overall was quite successful transfer window, and Dortmund invested much more money than I expected them to do. And some might say that maybe the left back situation should have been solved in a different way. But I think Dortmund would just, as we know now, they were just surprised how fit Rafa Guerrero was when he came back from holidays, which bears the question what he did the other 6 years. He surprised everyone at the club, inside the club, especially Terzic and Kehl. And so, Guerrero gets a next new chance, and you don't have to invest 40 million for David Raum. So overall, I think it was a successful transfer window on the buying side. On the selling side, not so much, of course. Dortmund are still behind that plan. They haven't gotten rid of Nico Schulz, Torgan Hazard, or a few others, and they are still essentially in a bit of a financial hole because the money that was invested in Schlotterbeck, part of it was money they planned to get from the selling of Manuel Akanji, and as it stands, they won't sell Manuel Akanji for the amount of money they plan to do. So there will be a bit of a minus there. And of course, now, as we know, after Aller's diagnosis with testicular tumor, they have only 8 million left to invest. So and if they sell Schultz and Hazard, maybe someone else, they won't get much money in. So yeah, they will maybe have 10 million to invest for a signing of an other striker, be it on loan or be it permanently. But that's not much. And of course, it was unplanned to sign another striker, but that's a bit of a tricky situation. But I don't think you can really judge them for that negatively, because how can you actually plan a scenario where your marquee signing gets a diagnosis like that a few weeks in?
Yeah, it certainly is a very sad news, and it was quite shocking. I felt that when Dortmund broke the news that Sebastian Haller was diagnosed with testicular tumor. Lars, your assessment of Dortmund's transfer window so far, what are you making of it? What are your hopes and dreams for maybe more signings, or are you content with how it's gone so far?
Well, first of all, while obviously the diagnosis for Haller is quite shocking and drastic in many ways, I think from a pure squad planning perspective, I don't necessarily see a difference to, say, an ACL injury, which can always happen. So one could make the argument that Dortmund weren't really planning for all eventualities in this case by not having a secondary striker available, unless you want to count the triumvirate of half strikers or whatever you want to say in Adeyemi, Malen and Moukoko, whom I would say, depending on exactly how many months, which we now know it's going to be months, not weeks, Haller is going to miss, I might be okay with those three, just because, as Konstantin pointed out, there's not much money to be spent, and getting a striker on a shoestring budget, I don't think that's necessarily likely to be someone who actually adds value instead of just being another body. So from that perspective, I think they were just caught out in a bad situation and now have to deal with it. So that's obviously disappointing for them and also for us, because I think it kind of took the wind out of a fairly promising situation around the club in pre-season. But I think there's still cause for optimism in other areas. I think I'm either ecstatic with the transfers they made in the cases of especially Özcan, Süle and Schlotterbeck, or at least I understand why they made them in the cases of Adeyemi and even Haller. I mean, I'm not, as we talked about the last time I was on, necessarily the biggest admirer of Haller's, but I can certainly understand why they went for him. And also, given what Konstantin said about the market situation for strikers, that you kind of have to accept some weaknesses in whoever was going to come in after Haaland left. So that was okay to me. Adeyemi, I mean, maybe I've just not seen enough of his yet, but I kind of think that he's a bit away from, being a regular producer for Dortmund, if you like, and spending 30 million on someone with that profile a year after spending pretty much the same amount on Malen didn't necessarily strike me as the most necessary move, if that makes sense. But then again, I can still understand that Adeyemi was definitely leaving Salzburg this summer, and if you didn't get him now, Dortmund would never have had the chance to sign him unless he completely bombed at Liverpool or whatever. And he's German, he's young, he has resale value if he doesn't work out, and there's certainly enough talent and quality to work out in Dortmund, even if perhaps it takes a bit longer than you would like a 30 million signing to take. So yeah, I mean, as I said, every signing at least makes sense to me, if not, a huge upgrade in all areas. I think depending on getting rid of, if we want to be unfair or unfriendly, Schultz, Hazard, maybe Brandt, maybe Can, there might be an opportunity still to add a left back, because Guerrero, even if he has this great fitness values right now, I mean, he's still unlikely, I would say, to play 45-50 games this season, especially this season, given the Winter World Cup and the congestion of the schedule, especially in the first half of the season. I mean, they are playing like 10 englische Wochen in a row before the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be quite difficult. And behind him, you have Tom Rothe, who's injured right now. You have Prince Anning, who I don't even know, is he really a left back? Is he more of a left wing back or more of an attacking minded player anyway? So maybe that's something that they can still look at without, splashing the cash on David Raum. And also, especially if the Aller situation and not being able to sign a suitable replacement, which is kind of my theory right now, leads them to playing with a back three more often, which also kind of solves a headache that Terzic would have had there, because obviously Süle is going to play. You don't spend 20 million on Schlotterbeck to sit him behind Hummels, but Hummels has also had a very promising preseason. He seems to be really fit right now. The knee issues as of right now aren't a huge issue for him. So if they play a back three, I think they might be a centre back short, because Koulibaly obviously hasn't debuted, I think, in for the senior team, or for the first team rather. Emre Can can do an okay job, I guess, deputizing at centre half, but assuming Akanji still leaves, which is kind of the situation that's been reported, even despite necessarily, the most concrete of interests in him on the transfer market, then I think they might need another centre half, right-sided centre half, especially, but I don't know if that's a likely conclusion to this transfer window. I think in the last few years we've seen Dortmund be more okay with acting on the winter market, so maybe if the first half of the season shows a few vulnerabilities in squad planning outside of the special situation around Aller, then maybe in the winter would be a good time to add another centre half, especially since by that point they will probably know whether or not Mats Hummels will extend his career and Dortmund contract, because he's out of a deal at the end of the season, and there are some rumblings, let's say, that I guess because of the knee issues Konstantin mentioned, Hummels might hang up his cleats at the end of the season, so you might still need a centre-back from July 1st, 23, so maybe there's an opportunity to get that in early.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, so far they have done business very early when it comes to, replacing Akanji, and I guess to some effect also Mats Hummels. I think that Süle and Schlotterbeck will be the number one pairing in the back four. But as you said, depth is certainly required. I would even say that it is required right now. Obviously, as you guys said, left back position. I see it even a bit more dramatic, because as much as I can appreciate the talent in Prince Anning, he's nowhere near Bundesliga level in my view, and Tom Rothe also not quite there yet. So maybe Rothe is a guy who I would trust with minutes if you are 3-0 up, maybe. But if push comes to shove, I don't know how comfortable I am with seeing him at left back. But that being said, there's also not that much of what we've seen in total of him. So, obviously he can improve, develop and whatnot. And I think this is definitely the plan. So I guess growing pains are sort of priced into this scenario. But I'm not feeling very comfortable. But at the same time, I don't know if spending 32 million on David Raum would have, been a savvy move. Konstantin, since you are a bit closer to Leipzig and David Raum looks like Leipzig are opening the purse strings for him. Is it a big loss in your assessment that Dortmund are not getting him, but Leipzig, a direct competitor, are?
Yes and no. I mean, there are some people in the league now essentially saying that Leipzig are ahead of Dortmund, and I think you can still dispute that because I think like Leipzig's center midfield is not as strong as Dortmund's, because Jude Bellingham is like a notch above everyone else. If you just watch the preseason, it's like astonishing. He's basically above everyone else inside Dortmund, and So there's something X factor, and also think that Leipzig don't have the kind of strong center back group. Maybe Guardiola, but the others are not that strong compared to Dortmund's. Raum, of course, I mean, he will replace Angelino, who's a bit of a wild card, has always been a wild card, and he will essentially replace him, or at least, push him back into the second string. So it makes sense for Leipzig. That's the one position they wanted to improve. Now at this point, they might also sign Timo Werner, but more on a loan deal. So yeah, I mean, it might be a loss in a way because Leipzig get him, David Raum, and because also, I mean, he's in a way perfect for that 3-4-1-2, which Terzic now wants to play in absence of Aller, so with the back three, and now Guerrero on the left side, which is still a little bit better than him being the left wing back. Still more of a position, I think, where let's say Terzic can sleep well, comfortably, and also, I mean, Raum at Dortmund, there would have been a kind of an interesting situation in terms of like German national team and Dortmund both then would have maybe Schlotterbeck, Raum on the left side in the future. So there's a pairing you would have had, in both national team and club, and there could be, of course, the synergies and just the understanding would have been developed over time, because what you have seen in the past when David Raum played for the German national team, especially with Schlotterbeck behind him. Schlotterbeck usually covered him a bit because he's Raum is a very aggressive left back or left wing back, who's essentially like Alphonso Davies in a way, who's making all these progressive runs. So he needs someone who's covering a bit, and Schlotterbeck did that kind of well, not perfectly, but because it's very difficult to do that. Asked all the left-sided centre backs at Frankfurt for covering Kostic over the years, but I think that would have been an advantage that you have basically the same pairing in the national team and in Dortmund. But it won't be that way because Leipzig, they have still money to spend, and they will do that in probably signing David Raum. I mean, the negotiation stopped a few days ago, as far as I know, but Leipzig, they will probably improve the offer and essentially spend almost all that remaining budget on David Raum and get him, most likely, and Dortmund will just stick to Guerrero. And also, when we talked about the other left backs, just shortly, Tom Rode is liked among the academy people, because he played a great campaign for the under-19 team when he played for them, especially with Bino Gittens on the left side. There was the pairing there, and in a more traditional 4-2-3-1 system. The higher-ups at Dortmund don't value Tom Rode that highly because he's so tall and he's a left back. It's a little bit off-putting to some people at Dortmund, basically. Why is he so tall and is he a left back? But I think, I mean, just you have to look beyond that a little bit and assess it just more fairly. And I think actually a very tall left wing back could be an advantage for like diagonal balls to the far post. I mean, basically, why not? If he is good in the air, why not use that in some instances at least? Prince Aying, he's like the talk of the town in the training camp, or it has been. So I think he will get his minutes early on because just he's riding on a wave now, and he will get minutes. It's just he's one of the revelations of the first few weeks under Terzic in the second stint, and I mean, people are waving about him. Him, Bellingham, these are kind of Özcan in a way when he's not injured. These are the kind of the winners of the preseason.
Yeah, I wrote down some positives and negatives from the preseason. I actually intended to do it in a BVB update, but I just get the time because my wife and I were on a small vacation, but I can read them out to you now. And so the positives are that Marco Royce said that the team never trained harder than this preseason, which, if it's true, is great. The new signings speak positive of the group dynamic. The 3-1-4-2, or as you just called it, the 3-4-1-2, right? Looks like a system that suits the current squad the best. Alexander Meyer looked very strong for a second goalkeeper. I think that's pretty important. Adeyemi and Malen seem to harmonize together as well if Dortmund play in that system. The pressing, I thought, in the preseason friendlies looked formidable as long as it was sustained, which wasn't long, which also, of course, was an issue in the previous season. And I also thought that Dortmund looked threatening in combination play and on the counter-attack. But obviously still early days. But, those were all my positives. And that Mats Hummels is in great shape and that Marco Reus was able to start very early after sustaining a muscular injury when he was away with the national team, which I think is also key. On my negatives, obviously, that they only scored 1 goal in the 2 season friendlies against Villarreal and Valencia, and that was a penalty, while they conceded 5 goals in those 2 friendlies. Not great, obviously, the Aller diagnosis, as Lars earlier said, it deflated the euphoria. And, it changes Dortmund's playing style to a certain extent and also severely limits the ability to lay any groundwork in the preseason. Same goes for Charlie Özcan, missing the whole training camp with a bruise, also limits the ability to lay groundwork in the preseason. Daniel Malen, limited in training, limits the ability to lay groundwork in preseason. Same with Emre Can, missed most of the training camp. Gio Reyna still not anywhere near full team training. Also not ideal. Matteo Morey has to take things slow still. So, while it's positive to see him back and with a smile, it would have been nice to see him more involved already. And Tom Rothe, as we just talked about, he picked up a hip flexor injury. So he's not fully fit yet. Also negatives that Manuel Akanji and Nico Schulz have not been transferred yet and were just sort of sticking out like sore thumbs at the training camp. So basically, these were sort of my notes and my preseason vibes. So I guess with that, we can sort of transition to the, striker situation, Lars. And I think we can make this brief because we've talked about it a little bit. But names right now are Edinson Cavani, who could be signed on a free transfer, Edin Dzeko, who is at Inter, and I also think Arkadiusz Milik, and I don't know, I've even heard Piontek. I'm not entirely sure about that one, but out of these names, what are you making out of it? Should Dortmund, should Aller be out for, say, the entire half of the season or more than 2 months? Should they try to sign another striker or not?
I mean, if economically feasible, to get someone who adds value and isn't just another body that stands in the way of the development of especially Adeyemi and Moukoko, then obviously they should try to sign someone. I'm just not convinced that there's an opportunity out there for that.
As an Interisti, how realistic do you see the Dzeko rumor, which would be the 100th rumor that Dortmund, or 100th time Dortmund have been linked with him?
As an Interista,
sorry,
I would say that he's on pretty decent wages at Inter, but obviously with Lukaku coming back, he's not looking likely to get too many minutes. Then again, Simone Inzaghi really likes to switch his strikers around. I mean, last season he usually brought on both strikers from the bench in most games after 65, 70 minutes or so. So I'm not convinced Dzeko wants to leave necessarily, especially given that Dortmund is looking at a solution for 6 to 12 months, you would assume. I mean, we're all assuming that Aller is going to come back and be ready to go at some point this season. So yeah, I'm not convinced Dzeko makes much sense for them. I think also Dzeko is, 36 years old. He scored, 13 league goals in Serie A last season, but most of them came early, and he definitely tailed off a bit in the second half of the season. Age is showing. I mean, he can still do a job, but I just don't see it. Cavani is also quite old. He wants absurd wages, according to a report from Sportbild this Wednesday, in the vicinity of 10 million for 1 year, which is definitely not happening at Dortmund. I can say that much. So yeah, I mean, Milik strikes me as a possible solution because I think Marseille are in financial trouble. Probably would like to sell him then and not necessarily loan him out, but still, maybe if wages are a problem for them, that would be someone, I think, someone who already went to Marseille on loan from Napoli, knows how to score goals, all that. So maybe an option. Piontek, I mean, I would literally shoot myself. But another former Hertha striker might be an option, John Cordoba, because he's at Krasnodar in Russia, and obviously there's an opportunity. I think that special window, if you like, is still open to sign someone from Russia without too many financial repercussions, as seen when Schalke signed midfielder Alex Kral. Cordoba is obviously not necessarily a huge goal scorer, although he had a couple of decent scoring seasons in Germany, especially for Cologne, if memory serves. But he's at least would be an option that they don't have right now in being a physical number 9. So especially if you want to change things up from the bench, that would be perhaps an option. But again, ultimately, I think unless Aller is out for 6 months and they need someone else, so if it's more a 2-3 month situation and there's nobody available to them, I would advise against just signing someone so you can say we tried. If you have to play Adeyemi, Malen and Moukoko, that's still 60 million euros of investment within the last 13 months or 12 months or whatever. And you still have Moukoko, who's this massive talent on whose behalf you lobbied for a rule change in the Bundesliga. So if this isn't the opportunity to play those guys, then I guess questions have to be asked why you signed Malen and Adeyemi in the first place, and why Moukoko should extend his contract at Dortmund.
Yeah, also, if you play with the attack the way you played against Villarreal, Konstantin, I think you have a system that favors Dortmund overall, as I said earlier, because of the fullback situation, because then they become wingbacks and makes life a bit more easy in that regard. So, Konstantin, quickly, what's your opinion on the striker situation? Do you think Dortmund should add an Haller profile type player, as Terzic, I think, said it at today's press conference?
Yep, that's what they're looking at. That's why also the rumors about Timo Werner, for instance, were completely out of thin air, basically.
That's where I would shoot myself, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Dortmund looked at Timo Werner, but they also assessed that they can't pay his wages, basically, because it's £9 million per year as a base wage. So nope, that's not happening right now. So it depends a little bit on what Terzic decides to do. He was very determined to play the 4-2-3-1 with Aller as a center forward. He wanted to have these, these cross passes from 30 yards out and stuff like that. He trained already to do that, to get behind the line and bring Aller into positions. Of course, it's all off the table. When they trained 4-2-3-1 now, or tried it out during preseason, Moukoko was the lone striker up front. When they played with a double, two-man attack, then it was Malen and Adeyemi. I don't know. I don't like Malen and Adeyemi at the same time on the pitch, because both like to get through the left half space. Malen scored 4 of his 5 goals with his left foot, usually going through the left half space like last season. Adeyemi drifts to the left a lot, so you got a little bit of an issue there, I think. So, I mean, if you really want to go with a lone striker and you trust Moukoko, then you should do it. Maybe sign no one else, and then maybe try Adeyemi sometimes as a lone striker and see what you can do with him, although he's not really a lone striker. Or you just think that the two-man attack is better, which I think at this point might be, although you're lacking that physical number 10 you usually need with a two-man attack that drifts wide, and Marco Reus isn't the number 10 you need there. There's also a situation with Marco Reus. I mean, let's be honest, he's highly controversial, or he's controversially discussed internally, because I mean, he has an automatic starting 11 spot, but some think he doesn't deserve it, and I might agree, actually, especially if Reyna's fit. So there's a bit of a situation. You need a more physical number 10 behind two drifting forwards. You don't have that really, unless Reyna suddenly becomes fit and he's like physical and everything. I don't see that right now. In terms of, so there's a yes and no answer. I don't know. I'm not really convinced that they will score a lot of goals with the setup they have right now, be it the lone striker Moukoko, or be it the two-man attack Adeyemi, Malen. They have no one else in the club. Let's be honest. Bradley Fink, they promoted him to the training camp. He's not suitable to play in the Bundesliga right now, and he might never be. He will probably end up in Switzerland again, where his parents are. And where they have influence. So in terms of what they have been rumored or what they have looked at, the strikers, I mean, Piontek, we can get it out of the way. They had a brief look at Piontek, that was it. Nothing else to it. Piontek won't come. Cordoba, they looked at it, but there are varying opinions among the reporters right now, if that's really something they did, or if it was more pushed by Russia or by Russian people, because Krasnodar, I mean, they're looking to sell him. Milik might be an interesting one. Marseille were forced to sign him because of an option or a contractual clause for 8 million from Napoli, but they want to get rid of him, not because he's bad or anything, but they don't have any money. So even a loan deal might be on the table here, because they want to get rid of him to get him off the bill. So if you can pay his wages, which won't be that high because he played in Italy before he played for Ajax, before he played for Leverkusen, so he's not like on ridiculous wages. So maybe a loan deal and getting Milik for a year might not be the worst thing, to be honest. Just, if you're not really convinced. So what I'd probably try to do is you play Munich, you play the small Munich 1860, probably called in English, in the German Cup. That's not really a test to assess the striker situation. Then you play Bayer Leverkusen on the first match day of the Bundesliga, and that basically tells you a lot. Because, I mean, you can argue that maybe Bayer Leverkusen are on eye level of Dortmund. So if it looks like the attack is not really working against a team like Bayer Leverkusen, then you have to do something, I guess. And right now, Dortmund are really only assessing and only reaching out to a few people, but there haven't been any concrete negotiations with anyone, because I think Dortmund themselves, they don't know what to do right now. So yeah, Milik maybe. All the other options don't make much sense, and maybe you can throw a Hail Mary and maybe try Moukoko against Bayer Leverkusen and see how it works.
Yeah, I would probably go with Malin and Adeyemi against Leverkusen just because of the pace and exploit that. I think they're a bit quicker than Moukoko, but it's really hard to assess, and we should also still highlight that Sebastian Kehl today said that they themselves don't exactly know how many months it's going to be that Alea will be absent.
And also, like, I mean, you have to discuss, even if he comes back, it is like not ill anymore, so to say, right? Like, what's his fitness level then?
Yeah, no idea.
Right? I mean, does he have to go through, like, I don't know, a 3-month camp, basically, to get his fitness back to professional level? I mean, you don't know. Because you don't know what such an injury, such an illness makes to you or does to your body. So that's, and also, I mean, before and maybe there was the illness when the first few days during preseason. I mean, he was really not a shadow of himself, but some people said that it was very unimpressive, and maybe there was really the illness already, right? But he was very unimpressive. He was very like sluggish and not really a presence, which you would expect from guy like him, who's also as tall as he is and all this stuff, but it wasn't really there. So, I mean, maybe there was an indication that, even if he comes back and is illness-free, he needs time to actually get to that kind of Ajax Champions League level.
Yeah, might be. So, I guess we can segue to our expectations for the season. Obviously, with all the negatives I just read out, the fact that, for example, Charlie Oshan was hardly a factor in the training camp, but Ragazzi, I think we're in for a really rocky start of the season. So here to cheer me up now is Mr. Enthusiasm himself, Lars. What do you think we're in for going into the season? We obviously have some excitement with new signings, but we also have a new coach, new sporting director, a lot of new backroom staff, etc. So tell me what you imagine is going to unfold in the next, 9 months or so, however long the season goes.
Well, I think it's not necessarily a great year to have so much turnover, given it's the World Cup in winter season, with, I think, 26 matches until the Bundesliga break in November. might be even more depending on the cup or whatever. So a lot of games anyway in a short amount of time, which you could say is a positive in terms of a team gelling quickly, but also you basically, as a Champions League side, from like early September, you probably don't spend more than 2 days on the training pitch per week. Most of it for regenerative purposes, so there's not a lot you can fix, let's say, in practice, if you believe in practice as a means of fixing things in football nowadays, which I guess is debatable, but not here necessarily. I think it's definitely going to be a bit of a struggle, especially early on, as you said. Also, quite a difficult schedule for Dortmund. I mean, 1860 in the cup is one of the more difficult draws Dortmund could have had. I mean, there are 5th and I think a couple of 6th division teams maybe even in the cup this season in the first round. So getting a team that was pretty close to promotion into the 2nd division in the cup away from home, obviously at 1860's legendary ground, that's definitely not one of the easier draws. So first round of the cup might be a bit of a struggle, even if you obviously expect them to advance. Then you have the traditional quote-unquote season opener against Leverkusen, which I guess if they lose is a good sign, because they lost in their first title season under Jürgen Klopp, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
Then I think it's Freiburg, right? Second match day? Or
Yes.
yeah,
Another
so,
Freiburg away game on match day 2. That never happened either.
Yeah, and you know, ever since Christian Streich beat Dortmund for the first time, they've become almost a bogey team for Dortmund. So we can easily look at those 3 games in alone, and there's a conceivable way in which Dortmund would maybe win one of these and hope for the best that they don't lose the other 2 now out of the cup already. So it's definitely not going to be an easy start. I think definitely also the entire Aller situation, not necessarily only obviously from the sporting perspective, because as I said earlier, he might have just picked up a knee injury and might have missed the first month of the season. Bit like Özcan seems to be struggling to get on the training pitch right now. But from the perspective of such a shocking diagnosis and something that you just don't think happens to young people and to athletes, even though obviously testicular tumors are the most common in young men. So check your balls, guys. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a bit of a struggle at the start of the season, and from then on, I think a lot of it just depends on rhythm and fitness and so on. I think Leipzig have the advantage of not having too much turnover. I mean, they might lose Konrad Laimer to Bayern, but I think Sauerschlager from Wolfsburg is a reasonably solid replacement, and I presume they would sign someone else still. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let go necessarily of a guy like Tyler Adams, or I assume anyway. Raum obviously will be a bit of an improvement, I would say, over Angelino, especially with Silva in front. I can definitely see Raum delivering 7 to 10 assists to Andre Silva's noggin. So I think Leipzig are more likely to challenge Bayern this season than Dortmund, even if that's not something most people will want to hear. Not sure how much of a challenge to Bayern that's actually going to be, but that's definitely not a topic for a Dortmund podcast. So I think, as Konstantin alluded to earlier, Dortmund might be looking more towards Leverkusen and a battle for 3rd and 4th, perhaps. The good thing, I would say, is that I don't necessarily see anyone from, 5th and lower from last season making a push into that group. I think despite how incredibly Union, for example, have performed, or Freiburg, there's still a bit of a gulf in just general quality. And also we have to wait and see how those clubs deal with, the demands of 3 competitions in the World Cup year. So I actually think if anyone's going to make a push like that, it's going to be Gladbach under Farke, just because I rate him so highly, but I don't necessarily think that Dortmund are likely to be challenged by Gladbach for a Champions League spot. So to make a very long story short, I think Dortmund are likely to end up 3rd or 4th in the league, so Champions League football guaranteed, in my opinion, which, given the amount of turnover this summer, would be an okay result, I guess. Cup beat 60 München, and then wait and see whom you face and when you face, Bayern, Leverkusen or Leipzig or Gladbach or Frankfurt. So one of these good teams where losing wouldn't be, an embarrassment like the St. Pauli game last season. And lastly, in the Champions League, I mean, Dortmund are in the 3rd pot, so it's going to be a quite difficult draw. Without a reliable goal-scoring striker, Champions League might be very difficult. So I would assume kind of that Dortmund will once again drop down to the Europa League and hope that they take it a bit more seriously than they did last season against Rangers.
Konstantin.
Yes, I'm much more positive actually. I think like the back three, the back line is. Yeah, I think that might be something to as a base basically. I mean, you have also Kobel who goes into his 2nd season, and if he can, basically be as good as he was the past 12 months, I think you also have a tremendous goalkeeper behind that back three. There's the only question mark right now is maybe Niklas Süle a little bit. I mean, he was trying to hide a little bit of his maybe remaining body fat during training camp. If you watched closely, especially in training sessions, he wore very loose clothing sometimes. Anyhow, but I think he will be fit for the start of the season, at least the Bundesliga season. Hummels knows that he can't play all the matches, but I think if all 3 center backs are there, you have a tremendous back three. Guerrero is fit. That's a plus, and he's really fit. As I said, like he surprised everyone, essentially. So that's a good one. Bellingham is almost at 100% right now, so that's a plus. Dahoud will play instead of Özcan. And Dahoud, I think Terzic, what you also know from Terzic, from internal talks, is that Terzic has really focused on getting Dahoud ready to be that kind of deep-lying playmaker.
I was thinking about that the other day because Lars obviously has dubbed him the lockdown Iniesta, which stuck, which I like. But obviously, coincidentally, his rise, so to speak, also came with Edin Terzic or under Edin Terzic. So maybe this is something positive that we might look forward to. I don't know if it's down to Terzic or the lack of fans, but I'm open for arguments that also might have something to do with Edin Terzic. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Terzic is working with Dahoud, especially in terms of like bringing him into positions where he doesn't have too many touches, where he can play the ball quite fast. Play the next pass quite fast, so that he doesn't have 5-6 touches before he makes the next pass. So to maybe accelerate his entire game a little bit as the deep lying playmaker, because what Terzic wants is he wants a bit of a Özcan is basically the perfect player for that, but he wants like the kind of deep-lying, passer, playmaker type of guy, and the runner. Bellingham probably the best option there, to make these deep runs, and that will be even more important if you don't really have Aller up front. So Bellingham has to probably cover 80 yards. Just he has to, but right now he's up to it because Bellingham looks like he can beat an entire team on his own. So Brandt is the other option for the Dahoud position. By the way, he has been tested there, and I think against some teams, Brandt will also be. Will work well against a couple of teams as basically that playmaker type. Then up front, I have some doubts, especially regarding Daniel Malen, but maybe it will work. Or maybe you give Moukoko more of a chance. I mean, Moukoko of course has the confidence, maybe a little overly confident at times, but there's probably also what you can see right now is, or what you have seen the past few weeks is that Moukoko has improved. I think technically he was always good, but when you watch like the first 20 games in the Bundesliga he made, he often like had a bad first touch. It wasn't because of his technical circumstances. It was more because he was too hectic, too kind of determined to make a quick move, and then he wasn't really focused on the first touch, so he made a bad first touch, and then he overreacted and tried to overcorrect, and then he made another bad never second touch, or maybe played a bad pass. So I think that has been improved, and you see now he's a bit more calm, and he makes far less mistakes. So I think maybe now you see more of the type of confident Moukoko you saw, at the youth level, where you basically was confident because he knew was just better than everyone else. So yeah, I think there's also maybe a Moukoko coming out party this season, so that might also help. So overall, I'm quite a positive. Marco Reus has to get. The problem with Marco Reus is like from a footballing perspective, he's still good. It's just, he's still the captain, and like there are a couple of people now at Dortmund who question actually the decision that he's still a captain, because he's not the captain in terms of like leadership. He's just not, and he's also no one who will attract the team through a stormy time. So that's probably a little bit of an issue. But luckily you got Bellingham, who's already taking a little bit of that leadership role in midfield, and who might just be that to step in and track the team a little bit behind him in his slipstream. So yeah. I'm much more positive. I think Dortmund will, of course, beat 1860, 80-60 Munich, and to be honest, they might actually beat Bayer Leverkusen, because Bayer Leverkusen, as good as that team is, they still don't have that playmaker in midfield. They still don't have that anchor player. And I don't know. They invest all the money in all the kinds of positions, but they still don't have that anchor player. So that will hinder them from any tremendous success this season. So I don't know what Leverkusen are doing. But yeah. So overall, I think Dortmund will have a decent start if they can figure out which is the best striker setup, and then go from there.
Well, I personally have a couple of things that I want to happen this season in the Bundesliga in particular. I want 6 points against Schalke, I want 6 points against Bochum, and I want at least 3 points against Bayern. These are sort of my demands going into this season. I don't know. I think, after so many years without beating Bayern, I think Dortmund should get 1 W at least. That just my hopes and dreams. But my question is also about the intangibles, really. How immaculate will the vibes be, if you want to say it like this, in terms of, Borussia Dortmund forming a new spirit with new signings and a different coach, and whether that will make a difference, so that, say, catastrophes like St. Pauli last season don't particularly happen as often again, because that was quite embarrassing. And I'll be honest, I think this is also quite important for Dortmund, that, especially if things don't go all that smoothly from the get-go, that they, formulate a winning spirit that helps them see out results, even though the playing or the football development isn't quite there yet. So these are factors that I have an eye on, and right now I'm feeling quite positive about them. I obviously still might be proven wrong, but I also have a rather positive outlook on the season. The one really big negative is going to be the absence of Aller, and as Lars said, especially when it comes to being successful in the Champions League. I have my doubts right now, because I subscribe to the notion as well that you need a prolific goal scorer up front, and maybe Adeyemi, Malen, and Moukoko can become that, but right now I do not see that. So I have my doubts about a European run, but I obviously will be pleasantly surprised. I'm also in the same camp as Lars when it comes to the cup game. I think it's going to be difficult against 1860 on Friday. But that being said, I'm fairly hopeful that Dortmund can make a nice cup run again, and if they go out, will not go out, with the tail between their legs, so to speak. And for the Bundesliga, I do think that Dortmund will compete for second or third place. Just as Lars said, I don't know if there's going to be a title run in store for Dortmund. A lot of things have to come together for that. So yeah, as much as I would say, okay, now Dortmund, after all the signings they made, clearly can attack Bayern and maybe throw them off their throne. But my enthusiasm just does not extend to that. Konstantin, you said you were positive. Do you have a feeling that Dortmund could make a title run? Because I do not see enough evidence for that.
I thought that before the Aller illness. Now I don't see it anymore. I still think that Bayern will struggle. I think people are a bit, I know, overexcited by the signings they made. I mean, of course, Mané and Matthijs de Ligt are great signings, but I think especially de Ligt, not overrated, but I think people might think that he's a 70 million signing, and I'm not sure about that. Has a bit stagnated. Might be because of Juventus, but I also think that people now expect him to be like Virgil van Dijk or something, and he's not right now. And also he has to improve in some areas, but that's a different story. And also they don't have Lewandowski anymore. They will also, same situation in a very different way, but it's the same situation. They will also probably play with a two-man attack. There's Gnabry and Mané. We will see how it goes. There might be a different issue. They also have like one attacking player who's set to be always in the starting 11. There is Thomas Müller. Dortmund is Marco Reus. There might be an issue with Thomas Müller that there's not really a position for him maybe sometimes. So they also face some issues. Not like they are steamrolling everyone. I think if Dortmund had Aller right now, I would actually, because what I told or what I said a few weeks ago, I actually expected Dortmund to win the championship, but then Aller got the diagnosis, and now I'm not so sure anymore. But with Aller, I would actually favor Dortmund, to be honest, because Bayern will have some issues, and Nagelsmann might be under fire at some point because he's not the like stable figure there as some people might expect. He's also under pressure a lot, actually.
That's a lot of positivity, though. I like it. I'm here for it.
Of course.
We are at the Yellowwallpod often get criticized that we're a bit too negative, and I can understand why that is. But So lastly, I would like to end, and we still have a little bit of time, on our theoretical best 11s, meaning sort of in a vacuum, so not optimized for the opponent, and just if you could pick the best players, the best 11. I don't care what system you pick, but considering or assuming everyone is fit and healthy and ready to go. So Lars, you have the honor to go first.
Thanks, Stefan. Goalkeeper Gregor Kobel. Right back Thomas Meunier. Center back pairing Süle Schlotterbeck. Left back Guerreiro. Defensive midfielder Salih Özcan. My pick for player of the season, and I'm not Matthias Sommer. Central midfielder 1, Jude Bellingham. Central midfielder 2, Giovanni Reina. Right winger-esque, basically do what you want, Marco Reus. Striker, does Aller count?
Yes.
Then Aller, left winger / shadow striker, whatever, Daniel Mahlen.
Okay, so that's a 4-3-3, right? Sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine is very similar. I have a 4-2-3-1 with Kobel in goal, and also the same backline with Meunier, Süle, Schlotterbeck, and Guerreiro. Then I have a double pivot with Özcan, Bellingham, and then as a number 10, I have Royce, I have Reina on the right, and Adeyemi on the left, and then Aller up top. That's my theoretical best 11 right now. So it's not that different from yours. But I really wonder if, to me, Adeyemi is a bit of a wild card, to be honest. I could have also picked Brandt or Mahlen. Also had a quick think about Bino Gittens, but I don't think he's quite there yet. I do appreciate Adeyemi's pace a little bit over Mahlen, so that's sort of why I picked him. But it's very similar. So, Konstantin, I'm very intrigued to hear yours. And
Yeah,
it's
so I
all
got-
that different.
I got Kobel in goal. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, then I have a back three. Is Marin Pongracic still there? No. All right. Schlotterbeck on the left, Hummels in the middle, and Süle on the right. Then Guerrero as a left wing back. I got Özcan and Bellingham as the two center midfielders. I got Meunier on the right with like sometimes leaning to Wolf. I'm not sure actually. Still Meunier. Yeah, actually
Moray is also around.
Huh?
Moray is also around in our theoretical best 11.
Yeah, but I wouldn't play him as a right wing back. Be honest. No, I actually play Wolf on the right side as the wing back, and then I have two number 10s basically, whatever you want to call it, and that's Reina and Royce, and I got Aller up front, and like Adeyemi is like chipping in for either Royce or Reina all the time.
Okay. Did he say a double pivot or defensive midfield?
Bellingham and Özcan.
Okay. I might have missed that, but
And Emre Can is sitting on the stands. Good luck with that.
well, yeah. On my theoretical best 11, Emre Can is actually sitting on the surface of the sun. So
He's actually playing for Schalke or what?
yeah, no, that would be too cruel.
Yeah, all right. It's also Schalke don't have the money to like, not even close to.
Neither do Dortmund really, but that's a topic for another day.
Well, that's like the same with Schlotterbeck, and now the Akanji money is still not there.
All right, so should we do season predictions? So cup exit, Champions League exit, and league position. I guess I'll start with I think Dortmund will win the cup. They will finish second in the Bundesliga, and they will then move to the Europa League and then crash out in the semifinal. That is my prediction for the season. Lars, what is yours?
Third in the Bundesliga, quarterfinals in the cup, losing to either one of the clubs I mentioned earlier, so Bayern, Leverkusen, Leipzig, Frankfurt, Gladbach, the type of club I mean. Drop down to the Europa League, quarterfinal exit.
Okay, Konstantin?
Yeah, so second in the league, final cup, playing against Frankfurt or something, I know, and getting to the with a little bit of a lucky draw, getting to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, because they will draw just Porto and Sevilla in the group stage of the Champions League, which is actually possible, by the way. Or maybe like Porto and Tottenham or something, yeah.
I mean, Dortmund had the group of death from a higher position, and other clubs had easier draws from pot 4. It does happen, so yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny, right? I mean, also for other teams like Frankfurt's also like pot 1. So, I mean, Dortmund can't get Frankfurt, of course, but still.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that will conclude our 2022-23 season preview. Thank you so much for coming on, Lars and Konstantin. Lars, as always, please tell people where to find you on the internet if they are willing to do so.
You say as always, Stefan, but I remember a number of episodes now where you didn't make us do this.
Well, okay, now I am, as always.
Yeah, follow me or don't at Lars Pollmann.
Very nice. And Konstantin?
Don't.
Yeah, right. I mean, I agree.
Yeah. Don't. You're one of these guys who have like in the bio, then don't follow me or something?
I have 10,500 whatever, and I think that's about 9,000 too many.
Well, we can take care of that. We just called it Twitter board or something.
Why do you need 1,000 followers? Why?
Yeah, you're narcissistic or something?
No, I don't need any, but for it to be an enjoyable experience, 10.5 is way too much, and you guys both have more than me, so you will appreciate that sentiment, I suppose.
I like every one of my followers. I don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes,
weird.
I've met every I don't know how many 19,000 in person, obviously. Konstantin, if you want to plug your work, be my guest.
Yeah, I mean, season starts again. Just follow me on Twitter, and you will be up to date with all the stuff that's going on. Be it written, be it on commentary, or be it in some radio, TV form.
Very nice. Yeah, you can follow me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Yellow Wall, where you will find the BVB update if you want to be up to date with Borussia Dortmund news of the day. And of course, you can also subscribe to the podcast there, but also via all the other podcatchers and pod feeds. We have a link tree, so just find us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter, and then you can see the link, or go to our website, theyellowwall.net. And we shall be back with another episode previewing the game against Leverkusen and then talking about the hopeful cup win against 1860 Munich. And until then, as always, thank you for listening and goodbye.
Bye-bye.